All right, time to welcome in the president of No Sleep. That is Jerry Palmer, of course, this time of year. And Jerry, I want to go back to Mick Cronin here. He's not excited about the committee having him as a 2-seed. You even have him in a 2-seed in your latest bracketology. Called it comical. Does he have a point here?
The only thing that's comical is that he has either created or bought into some wild conspiracy theory about this having anything to do with them leaving for the Big Ten. Who on the committee cares about that except possibly the Pac-12 representative? But he's one of 12 people on that committee. So that's just ridiculous. UCLA's resume is a little soft for a team at this part of the bracket in that their best win is Maryland. Maryland is a middle of the bracket team. Now, they're the only team to win at Maryland this year, and they beat them by about 100, but still, that's their best win. And the teams that they're competing with have all got multiple wins better than that. Now, they don't have any bad losses. Their worst loss is USC on the road, and that's a bubble team. Everybody else is pretty good. So it's a pretty, pretty solid line, the teams that they can beat and the teams that beat them. But this is, until they get wins that are better than Maryland, I don't see how this team can get above a 2. And I'm not even sure beating Arizona twice would be enough given the competition for the top line of the bracket.
So you mentioned, of course, the resume, and then you look at the remaining 3 they have, not much on the table outside of Arizona to end the season. But ultimately, is there a possible pass to 1 seed? Is it something they have to do, or those on the 1 seed have to do to maybe help them bump up a little bit?
I mean, all they can do is win all the way out and hope they get to beat Arizona twice. I mean, they get them once in the regular season. You don't know what you're going to get in the conference tournament. But short of that, there's no case for them at all on the top line of this bracket with the competition for that spot. They're a solid 2, and they're a potential national champion. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a good enough team to win the whole thing. But to actually get a 1 seed, they have to play a stronger schedule. Their league drags them down there. And, they're not going to have that problem in the Big Ten.
We'll have to see how comical that 2-seed pans out in the future for them when it comes to Mick Cronin and his crew. Elsewhere, Memphis able to get back on track after that loss to Houston, which will win, of course, against Wichita State. But how does that kind of keep them alive on the right side of the bracket there?
Yeah, for Memphis, they can make the NCAA tournament if they don't beat Houston, but it would sure help to beat Houston. But if they're not going to beat Houston, then they have to win all of the other games. There isn't any game that they can afford to lose left on this schedule with the possible exception of Houston. And they may get 2 more cracks at them. So, really the safe path is to find a way to beat Houston. That's a tall order, but they still have some hope if they can avoid damaging themselves further by losing to someone else.
All right, let's look at the Big Ten because it's interesting. Rutgers, they've lost 4 of their last 5. They're 8th in the conference. I mean, realistically, do they still have a pulse? So they need to go deep into the conference play? What happens with them?
Well, I mean, fortunately for Rutgers, losing 4 out of 5 and being 8th in the conference, neither of those things are criteria. However, losing 4 out of 5 has done enough damage to their resume that they need to be concerned. They don't have an easy schedule left. Nobody does in the Big Ten. But Rutgers needs to turn things around at the end of the regular season here. Their resume is interesting. They are either at or below 500 against each of the top 3 quadrants. That's not going to get it done. They need to stack some wins here at the end of the season, either in the regular season or the conference tournament, if they're going to get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament.
This win coming against Purdue, then that loss, of course, to my Temple Owls there. On the flip side of that game, Michigan, of course, getting the win. They had 2 straight W's, but they still have Indiana to end the season. What's the palm rating maybe of them getting back into the conversation?
Well, they got to 4 games above 500, which is usually the standard, although Michigan got in last year 3 games over. But they're not going to get in this year 3 games over. Their resume won't be good enough to overcome that. But, they're 3-10 against Quadrant 1. That is not a great record. They've got, you mentioned the game at Indiana. They're also at Illinois, and they get Wisconsin at home. And that's the first of those games. So chances to resume build for Michigan at the end of the season. They played really well last night. If they can continue to do that and get a few more wins, then Michigan is really a player and possibly an NCAA tournament team.
All right, Jerry Palm is always breaking it down for us, that bracketology. Get some sleep because I know you don't get that too often nowadays. Don't forget, you can catch the Eye on College Basketball podcast. The guys always breaking it down. You got Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander with the latest pod, taking a look at some of those big W's. Kansas, Texas, Marquette. Buzz Williams, by the way, has A&M tourney bound maybe in Rick Pitino's future. Those guys chop it up per usual on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Let's give them a listen.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.